Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press. And Judging by the Cover Bookstore in Fresno, celebrating Independent Bookstore Day Saturday, April 25th, with 9 Fresno authors and artists gathering to share their works from the newest edition of the literary zine, Wild Blue. This event is open to the public, and festivities begin at 2 p.m. More info at judgingbythecoverbookstore.com.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Tuesday, April 21st. I'm Sarith Hawk. Much of the air we breathe has dust particles in it. How does it affect our health?
What dust can do is it can aggravate asthma, it'll aggravate allergy. Dust alone getting into your lungs will activate your immune system.
And not just health. Dust can impact the climate and environment too. Today, we hear from UC Merced researchers who have studied the impact that dust can have on everyday life. But first, these headlines. A former employee of a Fresno Arts nonprofit pleaded guilty Monday to embezzlement. KVPR's Carrie Klein reports on the latest development involving the city sales tax known as Measure P.
Suliana Caldwell is the former operations manager of the Fresno Arts Council, and she admitted to stealing $1.8 million from the organization over 4 years. The money came out of more than $15 million in public funds generated by Measure P. The funds were supposed to go toward grants for local artists. Instead, the U.S. Attorney's Office says Caldwell used the money for vacations, gambling, and other improper personal expenses. She covered up the withdrawals by falsifying financial reports. Caldwell pleaded guilty to wire fraud. She faces up to 20 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. For KVPR News, I'm Carrie Klein.
The city of Fresno ended its contract with the Arts Council and is now administering Measure P arts grants itself. A Fresno man has been convicted in 2 separate fraud cases, including a $20 million loan linked to the failed Bitwise Industries. David Hardcastle pleaded guilty on Monday to conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The U.S. Attorney's Office says Hardcastle and a business partner altered loan documents to make Bitwise Industries appear less risky to investors. Authorities say Hardcastle and his partner used interest reserves meant to protect the loans to make unauthorized investments. Hardcastle could face up to 20 years in prison. U.S. Department of Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer is resigning from her post. Chavez-DeRemer is a Hanford native. The White House announced on Monday that she will take a position in the private sector. Deputy Labor Secretary Keith Sonderling will take over as acting secretary. Chavez-DeRemer was under scrutiny for allegations of professional misconduct. Former California State Controller Betty Yee has announced she's suspending her campaign for governor. Cap Radio's Laura Fitzgerald reports.
Yee, a Democrat, was among a handful of candidates polling at less than 10%, according to a recent PPIC poll. She told reporters on Monday that her polling made it difficult for her campaign to bring in the resources needed to get through the primary. She was critical of Democratic Party leaders' calls on lower polling candidates to drop out.
Look, when you have polls that are solely for the purpose of narrowing the field and you're in single digits, and every subsequent poll shows that you're in single digits, that has an effect on donors about, your viability.
Yee also said she doesn't believe voters are prioritizing experience and competence when it comes to the governor's race. She didn't immediately endorse another candidate in the race, but said she would do so in the coming weeks. 6 Democrats and 2 Republicans are still running.
That was Laura Fitzgerald reporting. Meanwhile, billionaire Tom Steyer is on a spending binge in the wide-open race for California governor. Data compiled by advertising tracker AdImpact shows Steyer has spent or booked over $115 million in ads for broadcast TV, cable, and radio so far. That's nearly 30 times the amount of his nearest Democratic rival. Steyer is using his personal fortune to fund the campaign, saturating TV screens and mobile phones with advertising. His competitors accuse him of trying to use his wealth to buy the state's most powerful job. California's Attorney General alleges that Amazon used its market power to pressure vendors like Levi Strauss and retailers like Walmart to raise prices on their websites. Rob Bonta said on Monday that he is seeking a court order to stop the practice. A hearing is scheduled for July. This is part of a 2022 lawsuit against Amazon that's going to trial next year. Bonta argues Californians should be protected from illegal price fixing, especially when affordability feels out of reach. Amazon denies the allegations and calls them a distraction.
You're listening to the Valley's only daily news podcast, Central Valley Daily. Show your support for local news by joining us at Corks and Brews, KVPR's annual spring fundraiser. On Sunday, May 3rd, enjoy an afternoon of fine wine and craft beer tastings. New this year, food will be available for purchase from some of the Valley's favorite food vendors. We encourage you to drink responsibly, find answers to frequently asked questions, and purchase your $75 ticket at kvpr.org.
And now to our main story. It's spring cleaning season, and that can involve wiping off something most of us may not otherwise notice: dust. But for researchers at UC Merced and throughout California, dust is much more top of mind. According to them, these particles affect many parts of our lives and not just our health. KVPR's Rachel Livinal joins them as they collect dust near a campus farm.
The latex gloves are coming on for graduate student Adiola Fagbaibo. He needs them to take a filter from an air sampling machine near UC Merced's Smart Farm. It's called an active air respirator.
You can think of it as a vacuum, but this is more specialized towards air sampling.
He quickly unscrews the filter and puts it in a sterilized bag. The filter is caked in dust. Then he cleans the machine meticulously.
It's a little bit dirty.
After this, Fagbaibo will head back to the lab and put it in a freezer stuffed with other dirty filters. He says all that filth is data.
We have bacteria, fungi, spores, we have toxins, endotoxins, we have allergens, we have pollens in dust. And so these are the things that dust carries with them.
Fagbaibo has been routinely collecting these samples every 2 weeks for over a year. As part of some research he's working on with UC Merced professor and immunologist Katrina Hoyer. Hoyer says they're looking to see what dust particles are made up of in the Central Valley, because dust isn't harmless.
What dust can do is it can aggravate asthma, it'll aggravate allergy. Dust alone getting into your lungs will activate your immune system.
And the more there is, the harder it is for your body to contain it. So a stuffy nose becomes something worse.
It can clog up your immune cells, whose job it is to eat up those particles as they get into your lungs. So if you're not able to push it out with your mucus in your nasal passageway, it can get deep into your lungs and can start to alter your immune response.
All of which can cause strokes, heart attacks, and even cancer. And she's part of a team of researchers throughout the state called the UC Dust Team. Their goal is to inform people about its impact. It can cause car accidents from dust storms, injure livestock, and even melt snowpack.
Dust wasn't really part of the climate conversation 4 years ago, and I think we have definitely gotten that information out to the policymakers so that they're having conversations. But I don't know that the general public is necessarily more aware of it.
Adeyemi Adibi is a Merced researcher and also part of the team. He says the more dust in the air, the hotter the weather. And the hotter the weather, the drier the soil.
In other words, having more dust in this springtime and probably also have more as well in the September, October, November period as well.
So he's finding ways to get people to mitigate it. Last year, IDB found valley farmers generate a huge amount of the state's dust, specifically from fallowed land that doesn't have crops planted on it. Now he's planning to show farmers how that dust gets kicked up into the air. He's using a makeshift dust generator. It looks like a leaf blower with a box of soil placed next to it.
I think it could give them more a visual representation of kind of like the damage or the danger around fallowing and then the dust generation that can come from it.
This is just for farmers. But the main message for everyone is small particles of dust can have large consequences on real parts of life.
Those things matters to the life of people around me, and I think it's why I'm interested in trying to continue to study them.
To make dust more visible to the rest of us. For KVPR News, I'm Rachel Livinal.
And Rachel joins me now to discuss her reporting some more. Hey, Rachel.
Hey, Sarith.
So dust seems like a pretty niche topic to perform research on. How did the researchers you spoke with get into it?
So both the researchers, Katrina Hoyer and Nadia Miadibi, had interesting journeys to dust research. Hoyer has done a lot of research on valley fever as an immunologist and how dust coincides with that. From there, she was brought onto the UC dust team that I talk about in the feature and launched into more projects around dust research. Addie B's journey is a little different and kind of interesting. He said he grew up in Nigeria and grew up watching himself and his family members being affected by the dusty weather and the big dust storms. He said he even had a cousin every winter season when big dust storms would happen that would end up with severe allergies and respiratory issues. One time she spent close to 2 months in the hospital because of it. So those memories stuck in his mind as he went through his college education, and eventually he landed on dust-centered research.
And you mentioned that Hoyer got into dust research after looking at its connection to valley fever. And for those who don't know, valley fever is a fungal infection that spreads through the breathing of soil particles. It's had a huge impact on our region. So what has Hoyer's recent valley fever research revolved around?
She told me she's currently working with chemists on identifying antifungal treatments for valley fever. There aren't very many antifungal medications out right now, even though medications that inhibit the growth of fungi or try to kill it tend to have more side effects.
That's interesting. And some researchers have said a lot of people may not know or really think about the effects of dust. Why is that?
According to them, I think it falls out of people's minds because it doesn't seem as pertinent as other health or climate-related issues like wildfires. For instance, Addie B. and Hoyer said dust storms, otherwise known as haboobs, happen a lot in Kern County and outside of big cities, which may make it seem like they're rarely happening. In reality, they happen a lot, but just don't reach the big cities enough to cause more conversation and awareness.
And before I let you go, Rachel, aside from educating people about dust, is there anything else the researchers have planned for in the future?
Yes. Hoyer is planning to publish her research she's working on with grad students sometime in the next year. It's the research we talked about in the feature. That will be exciting and hopefully provide more room for information on dust, specifically in the valley. Addie B also has a big dream to make dust forecasting commonplace, just like weather forecasting is. He says there's currently no early warning system that will let residents know if a dust storm is coming, but it would lessen the amount of car accidents or dangerous driving conditions that happen from dusty conditions, especially in our region.
KVPR reporter Rachel Livinal, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And that's today's show. If you enjoy listening to Central Valley Daily, support the podcast by leaving a 5-star rating in your podcast app. Even better, share the podcast with a friend. We really appreciate it. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Sarith Hawk. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
You know, every day on Up First, NPR's Golden Globe-nominated morning news podcast, we bring you 3 essential stories. At the heart of each story are questions. What really happened? What really mattered? What happens next? At NPR, we stand for your right to be curious and to follow the facts. Follow Up First wherever you get your podcasts and start your day knowing what matters and why.